Ladies and gentlemen, friends, today I want to speak to you about something that is both unseen yet incredibly powerful, the power of your thoughts. It is said that the mind is the battlefield where our greatest victories and defeats are won. Your thoughts do not only shape your internal world, but ripple outward, affecting the people you meet and the environment you inhabit. For the energy and attitude you carry influence those around you. And a hopeful, confident mind can inspire others just as much as a mind clouded with negativity can discourage and deflate spirits, showing that the reality we create is not isolated, but deeply interconnected with the lives we touch each day. What you think today sends waves into tomorrow, building a foundation on which your future will stand or fall. It is crucial then to guard your mind as you would guard a precious treasure, knowing that the thoughts you allow to take root will grow into beliefs that direct your actions and shape your destiny. For this is the quiet power that rests within each of us, the power to choose what we think about, and through that choice to determine the reality we live in. When you begin to notice the thoughts that dominate your mind, you can begin to prune away the negative and nurture the positive, transforming your life from the inside. There is also a profound spiritual dimension to this truth, as the mind is often described as the battleground where good and evil contend, where hope wrestles with despair, and where faith is either strengthened or weakened, reminding us that the power of our thoughts carries moral weight and eternal significance, calling us to be vigilant and intentional in what we allow to shape our hearts and minds. For these are the seedbeds of character and destiny. To think rightly is to open ourselves to the higher truth that can guide us beyond the limits of mere human understanding. When we embrace the power of our thoughts to shape reality, we begin a journey of transformation that changes everything. For renewing the mind is the gateway to renewing the soul and the life we live. And in this renewal, we find the strength to overcome obstacles, the courage to face fears, and the wisdom to choose paths that lead to peace and fulfillment, knowing that the thoughts we cultivate today are the roots from which our tomorrow will grow. The seasons of life reflect the seasons of our mind's garden, with times of growth and times of rest, and understanding this rhythm helps us be patient with ourselves and with others as we nurture change, and knowing that some seeds take longer to sprout and that every season has its purpose in the grand design of our transformation and healing. Water is vital to a garden's health, and in the same way, our minds must be watered with positive influences, encouraging words, inspiring stories, and uplifting truths. Because what we feed our thoughts grows strong, and if we feed on negativity or despair, our garden will suffer drought and decay. The choices we make in thought create a ripple effect, influencing our words, actions, and the example we set for others, which means our spiritual and moral responsibility extends beyond ourselves to the communities and families we, urging us to be mindful of the power our inner lives hold in shaping not only who we are, but also who others become through our influence. This responsibility invites us to a deeper awareness of the sacredness of our mental life, encouraging us to seek wisdom and guidance through spiritual disciplines that help us discern right from wrong and cultivate a heart aligned with compassion and justice. Knowing that true freedom comes not from indulging every impulse, but from mastering the thoughts that guide our path. In this light, spiritual and moral responsibility is not a limitation, but a path to true freedom. For when we take charge of our thoughts, refusing to be led astray by harmful desires or destructive beliefs, we become architects of a life marked by purpose, peace, and love, reflecting the highest ideals to which our spirits are called and inspiring others to walk that same path of integrity. And so as you face each day, remember the sacred trust you hold over your mind and heart, for the power to shape your character and your destiny lies within your thoughts, and embracing this spiritual and moral responsibility with courage and faith will lead you into a life of meaning, hope, and grace that blesses both yourself and all whom you encounter. Transformation through renewal is not a sudden lightning strike, but a gradual unfolding process that begins in the quiet chambers of the mind, where the old patterns of fear, doubt, and shame begin to loosen their grip and make room for thoughts rooted in truth, love, and courage. The true change does not happen by accident or external force alone, but by a deep inner turning, a renewing of the way we think, feel, and see ourselves and the world around us. This renewal is like the rising of the sun after a long night, not always instant, sometimes clouded, but sure and steady, bringing warmth to frozen places within us, melting the hardness formed by years of disappointment or failure, and awakening the seeds of hope that had long lain dormant, waiting for the light of new understanding to awaken them and call them forth into growth, And to be renewed in the mind is to let go of the lies that have shaped your identity and worth, to silence the voice that says you are not enough, and to listen instead to the still, true voice that reminds you of who you were created to be, full of purpose, full of possibility, not defined by your past mistakes, but by the power of redemption and the grace of beginning again. Because every thought you surrender to truth becomes a building block in the foundation of your new life. The world may try to conform you, press you into molds of limitation or comparison, but renewal is the breaking of those molds, the shedding of skins that no longer fit, the decision to rise above the noise and embrace the truth that transformation begins not with doing more, being or proving more, but with thinking differently, with aligning your mind to what is good, noble, and eternal, rather than what is shallow and temporary. It is through this renewal that your character is shaped, your heart softened, your eyes opened to the needs of others, and your spirit made strong, not because the circumstances around you change overnight, but because you are no longer bound to those circumstances, no longer defined by them, but rising above them with a mind that has been trained to see purpose in pain, beauty in brokenness, and light even in the darkest place. And as this transformation deepens, your life begins to reflect what your renewed mind now believes, that you are not stuck, not forgotten, not defeated, but chosen, loved, and capable of more than you once imagined, because your thoughts are no longer slaves to fear, but servants of truth. And when truth takes root in the mind, it grows into strength, wisdom, and unshakable peace. This kind of renewal does not isolate you from the world, but sends you back into it with new vision, with compassion for those still trapped in the same cycles you once knew, and a quiet authority that comes not from superiority, but from experience, because you have walked through the fire. And your thoughts now refined reflect the calm of one who has learned the power of inner change over outward success. So let the work of renewal continue day by day, thought by thought, for every step of transformation begins in the mind. And the more you renew your thoughts, the more your life will become a reflection of who you were truly meant to be, whole, healed, and filled with the quiet power that comes only through the renewing of the mind. There is a battle that rages not in the streets or in the skies, but in the silent chambers of the human heart. A conflict no eye can see yet, every soul can feel, for the battle within is a constant struggle between what we know is right and what we feel tempted to do, between the higher voice that calls us upward and the darker pull that drags us down, and no trumpet sounds and no crowd gathers to watch. This unseen war shapes the course of every life, guiding or misguiding every decision we make in the quiet places of thought and desire. It is a battle of the mind, where thoughts rise up like soldiers, where doubts try to overthrow faith, where fear attempts to conquer hope, and where bitterness seeks to drown out forgiveness. And though others may see only the surface of our lives, we alone walk the battlefield of our own soul, where the weapons are not made of steel, but forged from memories, beliefs, wounds, and convictions, and where the outcome is determined not by strength of arm, but by the condition of the heart and the clarity of the mind. In this battle within, every day becomes a choice, every moment a turning point, for we are never truly neutral. We are either feeding the light or giving space to the darkness, and the thoughts we allow to live within us become allies or enemies, shaping the landscape of our soul and determining whether we walk in freedom or become prisoners of our own desires, our own past, our own fears that whisper lies and chain us to what we were never meant to be. Temptation comes not always with thunder and shouts, but often with subtlety, with quiet compromise, with the soft suggestion that doing what is easier is better than doing what is right, and in those moments the true nature of the battle is revealed. For the greatest wars are often won or lost in silence, in the seconds between impulse and decision, in the stillness where we either rise up in truth or sink beneath the weight of regret. Yet there is hope even in the heat of the battle, because though we may feel weak, though we may stumble, the power to stand again lies not in ourselves alone, but in the grace that meets us right where we fall, offering strength we didn't know we had, reminding us that the battle is not only ours to fight, but that help comes when we surrender our pride and seek the truth that sets us free. The truth that says you are not your worst thought, not your darkest day, not the failure fear defines you. And so we must learn to fight with purpose, to train our minds with discipline, to speak to ourselves with the voice of truth and not condemnation, to silence the noise that leads us astray, and to amplify the whisper that points us home. Because victory in the battle within does not come by pretending the war isn't real, but by facing it with courage, faith, and a relentless refusal to give up, even when the struggle is fierce and the night is long. This battle within is not a sign of failure, but of life, of conscience, of awakening. For those who fight it are not weak, but alive, aware, and still in pursuit of something better. And every day that we choose to rise, to resist, to repent, to begin again, we reclaim a little more ground. We grow a little more rooted in what is true. And we become a little more of who we were meant to be. Not perfect, progressing, not finished, but faithfully fighting the good fight. So do not despair when the battle within feels too much to bear, for you are not alone in it. And the very struggle you face is proof that there is something worth fighting for, that there is light within you stronger than the darkness around you, and as long as you do not give up, the war is not lost, and the victory is still possible, step by step, thought by thought, day by day, until peace reigns where once the storm raged. Hope and faith begin not in the visible world, but in the quiet realm of thought, in the still and often trembling corners of the mind where uncertainty lingers and questions press in, yet even there, especially there, a single thought of hope can flicker like a candle in the dark, and faith, like a steady hand, reaches into the unknown and holds on even when reason shakes and fear shouts. For these are not mere emotions, but choices we plant deep in the soil of our thinking, where they grow into the strength we need for each step forward. When everything around us seems to falter and the night grows heavy, it is the thoughts we choose to entertain that become the compass for our spirit. For hope reminds the mind that pain is not permanent and sorrow is not the end, and faith tells the mind that there is more than what we see, that there is a hand at work even when all seems silent, that the story is not finished though the page feels blank. And every time we choose to believe this, even in the smallest way, we open a door to peace that passes understanding. Hope and faith and thought are not naive. They are not the denial of reality, but the declaration that reality is not the whole story. They are the defiance of despair, the refusal to be ruled by what has gone wrong, the boldness to believe that something good is still possible. And in this way, they are the quiet warriors of the soul, rising again and again to push back the clouds of doubt and fear, anchoring the mind not in fantasy, but in a deeper truth that speaks even when the noise of life grows. To think with hope is to let your thoughts lean toward what could be rather than what has failed. To let your imagination become a servant of peace and not panic. To see a future through the eyes of grace rather than the wounds of the past. And to hold the tension between what is broken and what can be restored, not because you have all the answers, but because you trust the process, trust the promise, trust the presence of something greater than yourself walking beside you through every valley. To think with faith is to speak to the storm inside before the skies above ever change, to declare that your steps are ordered even when the path is unclear, to remind your mind that you were made for more than survival, that you were not meant to live in constant fear, and that even in your weakness there is strength rising, even in your doubt there is a whisper of truth echoing louder, drawing you not to perfection, but to perseverance, and lifting your gaze from the ground to the heavens with every breath. Hope and faith and thought are the roots that hold you when the winds blow, the anchor that steadies you when the waves rise, the quiet force that shapes your words, your choices, your perspective, turning moments of despair into declarations of purpose, turning waiting into preparation, turning pain into wisdom, and through it all transforming you not from the outside in, but from the inside out, by the renewing of your mind one thought at a time. When you begin to think with hope and faith, you begin to live with purpose even in trial, to walk with peace even in chaos, to see beauty even in ashes. And this kind of thinking does not make you blind to hardship, but it opens your eyes to see how even hardship can serve a greater good, how even the longest night cannot stop the coming dawn, and how even the smallest seed of belief, when nurtured, can grow into a mighty tree of endurance and grace. So let your thoughts be filled with hope that refuses to give up and faith that dares to believe again. Because what lives in your mind will rise in your heart, and what fills your heart will flow through your life. And in the end, it is not the storm that shapes you, but the thoughts you held through it, the ones that chose to hope, the ones that chose to believe, the ones that kept walking forward even when everything else said turn back.